Otteluennakon tarjoaa Fotonordi.
Hello Luke, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
It's maybe first time we have a little bit longer interview with you.
Yes, yeah, only a few small ones before.
Tell us, how's the team now?
Team's pretty good. Obviously, Veikkausliigan starts in not so long time. We've had a little bit of a up and down pre-season. As people have probably seen on the outside looking in, we've had the ridiculous amount of illnesses. You name it, we've had it, and it's wiped through the team. But everyone's now, minus a few players, are back in training now, ready to compete for their spot, ready on the pitch. So looking forward to the last friendly and the games coming up.
How has the team's physical training been structured during the pre-season?
Yeah, so obviously I've spoken a little bit before to you previously about the off-season time, but moving on from that, coming back in January, there was a large emphasis on building up their cardiovascular system, a lot of longer distance runs in lower heart rate zones, and then slowly, once they're back into the trainings, after their break, building them back up with the short, sharp, intense work, and also at the end of the day, building them up to be as good of an athlete as possible. It's all well and good if they can run for 90 minutes, but the demands of football have changed nowadays. They need to be able to run for 100 minutes a game. If it's a cup fixture, sometimes even 120, 130. They need to be physically strong, physically robust. And with that strength and robustness comes also, in theory, a reduction in injuries. So we started off with one block where we had a lot of focus on pure maximal strength and the running, like I said. Then we transitioned into making them more well-rounded athletes, a lot more explosive. From our jump tests, we've seen some players hit 20% increases on jump heights, which at some of their ages that are doing it is almost unheard of, but shows that what we've been implementing has really had a really good effect on, like I said, making them a better, well-rounded footballer, athlete. So,
how much that load has been changed if you compare to November and compare to this point?
It's gone up quite drastically. Obviously, there's periods, so we've almost structured it on sort of a 4-week cycle. So we'd have 3 intense weeks where the load is increasing each week, and then the 4th week we'd have a little mini deload, not by much, but enough to let their bodies recover and let them adaptations from before go. Thankfully, pre-seasons are very long over in Scandinavia and the Baltic countries, so we've managed to have quite a few of these cycles, which is really nice. And each time we've gone through the cycle, the load has increased. Through the peak weeks of off-season, pre-season, we've had 3 double sessions a week on the pitch, including gym sessions on top of this. We really push them to their limits. We want to make it so that the game is no longer the hardest day of the week. We want to make sure that in training they're pushed to the limits. So when the game comes along, the game physically, they find the demands quite easy per se. So that's how we've been pushing them really well.
Let's talk about goals. You already mentioned that some goals, but if you say something about overall, what are the goals for the season?
Goals for myself personally and for the team, I would say keeping the players on the pitch as much as possible, reduction in the number of injuries. Last year we didn't have so many, but we still had enough that where it caused some disruption, and they were more longer term injuries. This season, if we look at it, we've had quite a few less injuries, and we've only had 1 or 2 soft tissue injuries, which is fantastic considering how much load we've put through the players. The injuries we've had currently have been a bit longer due to contacts or things in training, games, etc. So goals for me, keep the players as fit as possible, get as many points as possible, and I'd love for the club to do very well on the pitch with the style that my physical demands are on them, and also the coach's demands that we can win games purely from our physicality. That would be nice.
All right. How ready players are now?
Right now, I think we have a very good core players that are ready to go. Obviously, we've had a few that have been out being sick, like I've said many times, and unfortunately those effects are a little lasting, but they're all now on the upward trend, which is very good. So they should be ready, depending on how many minutes we want to use them for. But we have a very good core of players that are ready to go week in, week out and fight hard on the pitch for us.
how has the injury prevention been integrated into your training program?
Yeah, so a lot of it is done in the gym sessions, but also I microdose a lot in the warm-ups. So if you look at most scholarly articles that look into injury prevention, you're never ever going to prevent injuries. The only thing you can do is minimize the risk of it happening. Ensuring very good warm-ups, ensuring, like I said, they're well-rounded. The club of this year invested into force platforms, which are fantastic. They're a huge asset for me in the club. So when we're doing jump tests, for example, we can see the difference in their left leg to right leg, takeoff forces, landing forces. So for example, if I'm one of the players and I'm jumping and my right leg is doing 20% more work, something down the line may then flag up and be like, okay, left leg needs working. There needs to be like this. So if we're finding these potential issues earlier in the pre-season, which we have done, and we address them early enough, then it sets them for good stead. And also we use these force platforms after games and also just before games. So if we've played, for example, we play yesterday, today players will be in doing the jump tests, and then we compare the jump tests from today to their baselines. Again, this is now looking at a little bit more of the neuromuscular fatigue and making sure that physically they're ready. Okay, if they've flagged up where they're a bit more than the guideline we like, we'll reduce their loading during the training that day, give them a bit more extra recovery. Or on the flip side, if they look fantastic, they're fresh, their stats are very, very in line with where they were at their baseline, then we know we can push them a little bit harder. And like I say, in the warm-ups, we do a lot of microdosing now to ensure the hamstrings stay good, the adductors, because a lot of groin injuries happen, a lot of hamstring injuries happen, unfortunately, in football. It's part and parcel of the industry. And also, by doing our maximal strength work, making players stronger is one of the best ways to reduce these injuries.
So you mentioned that you have new equipment. So do you monitor more than last year, and do you have tests more than last year?
Yes, we monitor more than last year. As every club does, we monitor their readiness in the morning, see how ready they are to train. If anything flags up, we have that discussion with the players, and we can adapt their loading in due course to this. Like I said, we've got the Valve Performance Decks now, fantastic bit of equipment. We use that to screen players, one, when they sign for the club, also to check, okay, the strength block that we've been doing, for example, does it make them stronger? We put a heavy focus before on our glutes and our hamstring work. Some players were hitting 40-50% increases in maximal strength, and we can see that from doing the force platforms. And without that bit of kit, it's almost like guesswork. Okay, they might be able to lift 100 kilos, and then after a 4-week block, 5-week block, they might be able to lift 120 kilos. But it doesn't show us down to the little details. Okay, the left hamstring can do this much newtons, the right hamstring can do this many newtons. It's very in-depth and more precise. And then obviously, like normal, we've got the polar that we have in every training session, live heart rate, live data, live distances. So on the flip side, we can see almost if a player is ready to train again after being sick, heart rates are staying normal, or if heart rates are flagging, we know to pull them back a little bit. But also, players can't hide nowadays in football. We know if someone's not running enough, we see it there, it's in black and white. We can be a little bit harder on them or put an arm around them and say, come on, what's going on? We can always take little approaches.
All right, interesting.
For me, anyway.
How is recovery supported during a tight match schedule?
Yes, so thankfully in pre-season we haven't had so many quick turnarounds, but I've already started pre-planning for Veikkausliiga starting. As many have seen, it's almost a game every sort of 3-4 days, which...
And we have Suomi Cup also starting.
Including that as well, yeah. We have 2 of those games in the first month. Well, we should have 2 of those games in the first month. So games are going to come thick and fast. So like I said, the force platforms, we use those to track the neuromuscular fatigue and also muscular fatigue of the players. We've got a great collaboration with Floasis that we go in and do the salt recovery pods with. The salt one helps with the... I thought you were going to cough. The salt helps with the muscle soreness, and then also the relaxation inside of that also helps with the, like I say, neuromuscular fatigue. It's something that's not really looked on so much in football, especially at this level. The elite clubs will be using things like this, hyperbaric chambers. We don't have access to this, but I think the float pods are a great stepping stone for us to start implementing these sorts of recovery protocols.
Of course, you mostly concentrate physical side, but how is mental performance connected to physical training?
Everyone knows if a player's feeling good, they're going to train better, they're going to play better. If a player feels, can I swear? If a player feels shit, they're gonna not play to the best of their abilities or be able to perform to the best of their abilities. So I think the mental side is definitely something that's drastically overlooked. Everyone knows you play your best football when you feel your best. Confidence is going to be high. So again, when players do well, it's about encouraging them, saying, unbelievable, fantastic, keep doing it. Or when they're feeling a bit low, building them up. We've also got the collaboration that we worked with last year. I worked alongside, or I didn't work alongside, I worked with Jarkko a little bit. He had some great results from last year with the team, and I'm very glad we've continued with it this year. I know a few players are currently using their services, and again, like I've said many a time before in previous interviews, small little 1% here and there really add up. If we can get a 1%, 2% from the mental side, 2% extra from the recovery, 2% from the nutrition, there's 6% already. That 6% better is quite a large amount when you break it down into small categories. So the mental side is a huge aspect.
How do you build daily routines that support peak performance?
It's all about breaking it down into small margins. So like I've said before, small 1% here, small 1% there. This year, players get breakfast, we all meet there. Again, looking at the nutrition side, some players might think it's okay to skip breakfast. Some players might have the wrong sort of things for breakfast. So fueling them and making sure they can perform at the best. Starting the day off by this every day is the best way to start the routine. And again, keeping standards high. We're a Veikkausliigan team, an elite football team at the end of the day. So keeping standards high within training, within players, within my workload, within other coaches' workloads, within the players. All demands need to be kept to the basics, and those basics needs to be done to the best of everyone's ability.
Sieltä lähtee Jokelaisen vapari! Alkuun iskee! Justin Reddings! Kauden 4. pyyri! Se on komea volley! Alanurkka! Ja Oulu johtaa 1-0!
Tell us about the cooperation with other coaches and your roles in the team.
Yeah, so part of my degree is learning straight away that working as part of a multidisciplinary team is key at the end of the day. If the whole team behind the team isn't functioning well, then how can the team function well? I think we have a great collaboration at the moment. Everyone knows each other's roles. Everyone gets on well with each other, but we're not afraid to challenge each other's different opinions. And again, at the end of the day, it's to get the best out of the team. We work really well at the moment in trainings when players are coming back from sickness or injury. How can we integrate them into certain drills, or can we adapt the drill slightly so this player can be joining in if they're on their way back from an injury and they can't have any contact, for example. So then at the end of the day, when they are back, it's almost like they'd never left. They just seamlessly fit in perfectly into the training, which we're doing quite well at the moment. So that's really nice to see. And then obviously need to have very good communication with Kano head coach, the assistant coaches, Linko and Rafi, and also goalkeeper coach, Yanni. So good collaboration and communication between everyone is the most important thing. And then also on a match day when I'm sat there with my iPad, checking everyone's heart rates, checking everyone's output, physical output. If a player starts slacking, now we're at the level where I don't need to go and tell the coaches. I can just go straight up and tell the player on the pitch, look, pick it up, let's go. Or if I can see a player starting to drop physically and their output is starting to lower quite drastically, then I can open up that discussion and say, okay, this player's starting to lower now, physical output's going down. We can either make a change now, or we can give him a few minutes to decide if it's just a lull in the game, or do we need to make that change right away. So having that communication with all of the coaches is the most important thing.
How do players in different positions differ in terms of physical training needs?
Yes, so you have to look at it positionally, but you also have to look at it as an individual. So if we go purely off strength work, normally centre-backs need to be a lot bigger. Physically, they have strikers that are normally quite quick, quite strong. They need to physically be able to cope with those duels. Centre-mids can be a mixture of both. Wingers are normally physically profiled, quite short, nippy, quick and explosive. But if we look at the running demands throughout the pitch are completely different on total distances and intensities. So in the GPS report I send to the coaches, I will highlight certain areas and say, okay, centre-backs, for example, need this percentage of high-speed runs compared to total distance. So for one player, it may be, say, 8 to 10%. Whereas for a winger and a forward in our system and how we want to play, that should be drastically higher. Same for centre-mids. centre mid's distances are naturally going to be a lot larger than a centre back's distance. So not only is it positional, it's individual, but it's also tactical. The way that one coach plays, you could put the same player in the same team with a different coach and their different tactics, and the physical outputs are going to be completely different. So positionally, wingers, forwards, centre mids will normally run the most. Forwards and wingers will normally have the most high intensity runs, same as wing backs. Centre backs normally the lowest amount of total distance or high speed runs, and centre mids normally have the highest total distance and a mid high speed run.
All right. What kind of relationship you have between players?
I would say that I'm quite approachable. I get on pretty well with all of them. At the end of the day, they're there for a job. I'm here for a job. We're here to work and put the club in the best place possible to get as high up the league as possible. So there's moments where I'll be your best friend. I'll put my arm around you, laugh and joke, have a good time with you. But at the end of the day, it's still professional. So there's going to be times where, okay, I'm going to tell you it's not good enough. Sometimes I'm a little bit more blunt than just saying it's not good enough. I'm a little bit harder, but at the end of the day, some people need that. But also you need to know between each player. So for some players, I could probably scream out on the pitch to start running and okay, they do it. Whereas some players, you need to almost build them up and say, oh, fantastic, but I know you can do more. So there's different ways you can also approach it psychologically. But I would say overall, they would say I'm quite fair. They hate me at times when I make them run. And for example, the players that are injured. Mass tests. Yeah, mass tests, we've had a few of those. Running sessions only, we've had a few of those. And when players that are injured are trying to get back into the team and fitness, making them do the high intensity runs and the circuits that we do to get them fit, ready. They hate me at the time, but at the end of the day, they should love me at the end. Prime example of this is last season. I've always got the players' best interests at heart. I'm not going to do something that isn't for their best interest. So Muista away at 8th last year. He wants to play on. He can hate me all he wants. I know in my head that is completely the right decision to pull him off. Thank goodness I did. So they can hate me, but they will always know that I'm doing it for the right reasons and not to be a prick or to be horrible or because I don't like them. I'm there with their best interests at heart.
That was a brave decision.
It's the only decision that should have been made.
Yeah. What kind of thoughts and predictions do you have about the upcoming season now?
I'm quite optimistic. I'm looking forward to it. I think that we can have a really good season. We've got a great bunch of players that always want to work hard. They want to give more. They want to do more every day. And when you have a team like that with a good team spirit that want to do more, want to push more, want to work hard, anything can happen. You never know where we can finish. I think that the club wants us to finish as high as possible. I want to finish as high as possible. It's good for everyone. So I'm very optimistic and hope for the best.
Hey, Luke, thank you and good luck for the season.
Thank you very much.